Scott Grayson's in the house. Grayson's grades are back for the NFL draft, and he, like all guests, appears via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Scott Grayson, it's a pleasure to see you, man. I haven't seen you in a while. Obviously, the off-season's here. He gets his time. Of course, you see him on Fox 29 as well. And what's going on, man? How you been?
Been good. It's good to see you again, too.
Well, we have the draft, so we got to bring Grayson's grades back as Grayson grades the draft. And, overall, before we kind of get into guys and the players here, what did you think? It as everything in this world, very polarizing, mixed reviews. Some people like what the Eagles did. I saw The Athletic said they had the best draft of every team in the league. Others, some head-scratching moves, and some of these won't be realized until down the road. So initial grades and reaction from you is what?
Overall, I felt like it was a better draft than what they've had in the past. Agree with you. Obviously, we won't know for sure for a couple of years. I think there were good moments and certainly some head-scratching moments within this draft, given that they had so many picks. But overall, I feel like they got better. I don't know if they got a lot better, but they got better. And they certainly set themselves up going into next year's draft to have quite the stockpile of some good ways to fix this team once they figure out what some of those holes may or may not be.
Yeah, I know Thursday night they got Devonta Smith. They went from 6 back to 12, then up to 10. What was your overall grade of that whole scenario and landing Smith?
Initially, I thought, well, he doesn't know what he wants to do. He's dropping down, and he's when they got past when Patrick Surtain, he's the guy I wanted. I wanted the Eagles to get. I thought he was the guy that could really come in and help solidify that secondary. When the Broncos took him, I was shocked, and I thought, I think they're going to move down now because there's not going to be guys in front of them that they want. Devonta Smith was obviously going to go to the Giants, and I never imagined that the Eagles and Cowboys would do a deal.
Me neither.
Just to mess with the Giants. I loved that. Quite frankly, I thought that was great, and I think, the key now is to make the Cowboys pay for letting you get Devonta Smith as time goes by. So I like ultimately they got Devonta Smith in a first-round pick next year in exchange for the number 6 overall and a third-round pick. To me, that was a great deal by Howie. That's one of the times where I would give him essentially an A+.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, Scott, see, I agree. I like the trade and the moving on the surface. They got the pick next year. They only gave up a third to move up the 2 spots. I like the player they ended up with. There's a part of me, though, that wonders, if they stayed at 12, would they have got the call from the Bears to get the 4th first-round pick to move back to number 20?
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying. I just get to the point where I'm thinking, boy, how many first-round picks do you think you need? And I understand the more you have, the more flexibility you have, and the more likely you are to be a high draft pick through one of them, or you could put a couple of them together to get up. I think 3, to me, was enough. You have 3 first-round picks, which is capable of landing you a veteran quarterback if you need one, a veteran skill playmaker that's still in a good spot if you really need one of those because you feel like Jalen Hurts is okay enough to be the guy. I don't know if they needed a 4th first-round pick. I understand you certainly could have done a lot with that. But Devonta Smith gives you that guy that's going to draw attention from other teams at this point. The problem I have is they still don't have a receiver with any kind of size that could be your number 1 receiver on the outside that can handle some physical contact. You've got Devonta Smith now. You still need that guy on the other side.
All right. So you like the whole 6 to 12 to 10 and
yeah.
that with Smith. All right. So round 2 is where a lot of people are saying, wait, what? I mean, I'm torn because I really like the player. He fills a lot of needs because he can play all 5 positions. So you have one guy that can basically say, we don't need to draft another lineman in this draft because this guy plays all 5 spots. But I was on record ahead of time saying they didn't need a lineman for me. I like getting Johnson back and Brooks back and Kelsey and Sayamala, and I'm okay with Dillard and Mailata battling out for left tackle. I think that's a good offensive line. I like Jack Driscoll. I think if you don't have to play Driscoll and Herbig and these guys all together, one of those guys can fill in as a backup. The problem is you lose multiple guys. But at 37, there was a lot of options there. So what did you think of – see, I didn't want a lineman, but this lineman I'm okay with. Any other lineman I would not have been okay with.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here for sure. I really, really thought their first 2 picks were going to be receiver and corner in either order.
Yep.
They got the corner in the first round. They get the receiver in the second round. I was so sold on the fact that it was going to be a corner. The moment they announced the name, I was – no, what are we doing here? And then you dig in deeper and you see he's had 4 of his 5 seasons in college and due to injury.
Yep.
Each ACL on both knees. I agree with you. The kid's got so much potential. He's got so much talent
and
when he's healthy.
It's not good when you have a guy like Baldy, very respected, already saying he's the best offensive line prospect since Quentin Nelson. This guy's going to be – I mean, you got people like ripping each other apart here.
Yes, and here's the other thing you hear a lot too is this feels a lot like the Sidney Jones move. Here's a guy who fell because of his injuries.
Right,
certainly a lot of talent,
probably a top 15 pick if he's not hurt.
Absolutely, and that's what Howie's. And so I understand you can't make this pick with Sidney Jones in mind. So for that, I give them credit. However, I think this draft will ultimately be decided by 2 things: Devontae Smith first and foremost, and secondarily, if Devontae pans out, what happens with this pick? And I think that will ultimately drive a lot. Now, I think they look at him and they say, we don't need him right away. You listed all the guys they have on this line. They're thinking if Kelsey retires, we don't have to put Sayamalo at center. He could play there. We could put Sayamalo at center and move him to guard. If Brandon Brooks goes down later in this season again, we might have him healthy enough to be able to go in there. There's other options. They certainly got deeper on offensive line with this move. However, high risk, high reward, or high criticism coming at Howie after all this, for sure.
By the way, Grayson graded the pick as a D, potentially an A.
Yes. Again, if he's right, if he's fixed this injury stuff, which the modern miracles of medicine, and he's a young enough kid,
he's out there doing cartwheels.
See, right? I mean,
guys are. To be fair. Guys are coming back from this particular injury a lot faster. You are absolutely right, though. High red flags here. I think the difference between Sidney Jones and DK Metcalf, who was medical red flag for this team, they're skill position players. He is an interior lineman where the leg problems aren't as proficient as if you need speed on the outside.
Absolutely, and I think that all went into them saying we could get a steal out of this as time goes on. And that's what we'll have to wait and see.
All right, let's go to round 3 because they also made a trade here where they go from 70 down to 73. Now, this is interesting because there was that video that came out that some people were saying, look, there was obviously some kind of split in there, which happens on draft day. Let's be clear. That happens. I said, if you were a fantasy football and Scott and I are partners and we're in round 3 and I say, look, I really want to take a wide receiver and you're like, dude, we need another running back. All right, go take the running back and I'll leave. That happens. On that level, it happens. On this level, it happens. So that video didn't help this out. Not to mention they took a player who is very unknown, smaller school. So this has that smell of smartest man in the room always.
Yeah, and I think you could talk to 10 people and hear 5 people who think it was a good move and 5 who say it wasn't. You're absolutely right. The video went viral. It happens in every draft room. You just don't see it. And it's a bad look for this team at this moment, which went through this offseason with this kind of bullseye on them for this kind of reason. And, I thought, again, okay, you didn't take the corner in the second round. I think I'm in line with what I believe Donahue was thinking, which is he wanted a corner. And I'm sure that was part of the argument that must have taken place before the camera went on. And they did not get the corner. He went 1 or 2 picks in front.
Yeah, there was a corner that went right there to New York at 71 or 72.
And it's a double whammy because not only did you not get the corner, but he went to your rival in the division who you're now going to see twice a year. So I'm sure all of that was part of what went down in that video. Now, that being said, as far as this pick, it's not this guy's fault that all that happened. And so now we got to give him the fairness of looking at him. And I think he has a lot of good qualities to him. I certainly think he can contribute. I think he can mix in with this rotation. I think it wasn't a bad pick. it's just going to be remembered for the optics we saw around it. So
Right.
I don't think it's a bad pick. I think I gave it a B. And there's some potential for this guy to certainly come in and make an impact with this team.
Yeah, now we just had Ryan Roberts from Coast to Coast Scouting on. He said he did not like Robinson as a fit for this particular team. He views him as a nickel corner, not an outside corner. So he's saying, hey, but there were other corners that went later that he liked more, maybe even in that spot. That's the problem, though. The Eagles, I think the message was, we took the best player available. We did not draft for need. We did not say, we need a corner, so let's take one of these corners, even though we have this guy rated high. They did that last year, and Roseman came out and said, we didn't stay true to our board.
You're absolutely right, and they've been ripped apart for that in the past. So how then could people turn around and say, how could you do this?
Yep.
This is quite frankly what everybody said they needed to do. When you look at this roster and you say, this is not the year you make the run at the Super Bowl, as with any team, maybe chips fall into place. You got lucky on a couple of things, and this team can make a run. At this point, I don't know anybody sees that happening, but you're building, in my opinion, for next year to be a year you can really compete. And I think that's what they did. They went out and got really the best players available at those times. And they did address corner later, and we'll certainly get into that. But, that is something that I thought was a little refreshing, was to see them not jump off their board and do stupid stuff. I don't know if they did anything totally stupid in this draft. They certainly did some things you scratch your head about.
They took a risk.
Certainly they did, and we talked about that. But I think overall, and this is why I think ultimately we sit back and we say, okay, I don't think this was a bad Howie Roseman draft. Was it a great one? I don't know. I'd go that far.
Right. The rest of the way, he made the comment, Scott, that fans are going to be sick and tired of us taking offense and defensive linemen, but that's what won us a championship, and that's what's going to win us another one. And if you look at the rest of the draft, they went defensive end, defensive tackle, two defensive tackles, two defensive ends. So they went with a lineman. So they really stuck to the interior there. So and they went with a running back. They took the running back in round 5. And a linebacker with Jacoby Stevens. So the rest of the way, they went defense primarily. They only took 3 offensive players, 6 defensive players. If you grade those last couple guys there, any of them stand out to hey, they got this guy late, but he might help them out.
Yeah, I really thought they did potentially find some good value in some of those guys. You've heard a lot of people talk about Gainwell, the running back. I think he is going to be a good fit with what Sirianni wants to do. He wants to spread the ball out, stretch the defense out, get running backs the ball out in space, and he can certainly do that by catching it. He didn't play last year. He sat out with COVID, with the COVID issues, decided to take a year off. So the last time we saw him at Memphis, he put up some really good numbers, rushing and catching the ball out of the backfield, and I think that's what they want him to do. So now when you take a look at this backfield, Miles Sanders, sure, he's the guy who – again, I've said it every year, and maybe Sirianni will be the guy who'll give it to him. Let him touch the ball at least 20 times. After that, you look at your situations. In short yardage, you're going to go Jordan Howard. You can mix in now Gainwell, in my opinion, who can do a little bit of everything. And so, I like that pick. I think there's good value there where they got him. I like McPherson as the cornerback. He likes to contend the ball at the point of the completion. We never saw that under Jim Schwartz's defense because they were always taught to keep their back to the ball and just try to harass the guy, which drove me nuts. And I think this guy could fit in well with this defense. But again, we don't really know what this defense is yet and what the philosophy will be. But I think he's got a chance. He's certainly not going to be, at least off the bat, I'm not expecting him to be a lockdown corner that a Patrick Surtain could have been had they gotten him. But I think they helped themselves with depth later on. But we'll see how it plays out. I don't hate any of those picks late.
All right, Scott Grayson has his full grades for every pick up right now at 97.3 ESPN.com. Grayson's grades for the NFL draft. You can check him out on Props and Locks on Fox 29. Follow him at SGraysonFox29. And, of course, another season of Grayson's grades will be coming up as the NFL schedule will be out May the 12th. So we'll have a schedule next week. And, of course, Grayson's grades will be back for another season. Scott, good to see you, man.
All right, you too, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Scott Grayson's grades, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Great job, as always, by Scott.